The Edgewater Experiment. In the heart of an unforgiving wilderness, shrouded in the cloak of eternal twilight, stood the Edgewater Institute. A relic of ambition, its spire pierced the heavy mist that perennially enveloped it. This enigmatic facility, known for groundbreaking psychological research, had recently embarked on its most audacious project yet, the perception experiment. It promised to redefine humanity's understanding of reality itself. Participants, drawn from diverse backgrounds, were lured with the promise of substantial compensation and the allure of contributing to scientific breakthroughs. Little did they know, they were about to become ensnared in a web far more complex and sinister than any of them could imagine. The initial days unfolded without incident, as the participants underwent a battery of seemingly mundane psychological evaluations. The Institute, with its labyrinthine corridors and stark, clinical rooms, exuded an air of foreboding, yet the staff's professionalism kept any unease at bay. However, as the experiment progressed, a palpable shift occurred. The tests grew increasingly bizarre, involving sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and exposure to abstract, sometimes disturbing visual stimuli. Nights were restless, filled with strange whispers and the unsettling feeling of being watched. As weeks melded into one another, a sense of isolation took root. The outside world felt like a distant memory, and communication with it was strictly forbidden. It was then that the first anomalies began to surface. Shadows moved with unnerving autonomy, and the sterile cold of the Institute was occasionally punctuated by inexplicable warmth, as if breathed upon by some unseen entity. Participants started to report vivid, unsettling dreams that shared eerily similar themes of entrapment and pursuit by an indescribable force. The turning point came when a participant named Alex vanished. His disappearance was abrupt, his room left in pristine condition, as though he had never existed. The staff dismissed inquiries with cold indifference, insisting Alex had simply concluded his participation early. But the air was thick with suspicion, and fear began to fester among the remaining subjects. It was then they started to notice the cameras. Positioned discreetly in every corner, their unblinking gaze seemed to track not just movement, but emotion, feeding an unseen observer with their growing dread. Determined to uncover the truth, a small group, led by a fiercely intelligent and skeptical participant named Mara, began their own investigation. They discovered hidden passages and rooms, revealing the Institute to be far older and more sprawling than any had realized. Deep within its bowels, they stumbled upon a library filled with arcane books and disturbing journals that documented the Institute's true purpose. It was not a center for psychological research, but a front for exploring and harnessing the paranormal, seeking to blur the lines between reality and the netherworld. The experiment, they learned, was designed to break down the participants' psychological barriers, making them conduits for entities from beyond. Alex's disappearance was no withdrawal, it was an abduction by the very forces they sought to understand. Horror-stricken, Mara and her allies resolved to escape, but the Institute was no longer the place they knew. The layout twisted upon itself, stairways led nowhere, and rooms looped back endlessly. As desperation clawed at their sanity, the once cohesive group felt the fabric of their reality thinning, the world around them warping in ways that defied logic and reason. In this surreal and fractured landscape, they stumbled upon Alex, or rather, the vestige of the man they once knew. He was a mere shell of his former self, his physique gaunt, his posture slouched as if bearing an invisible weight. His eyes, once vibrant and full of life, were now hollow, devoid of any spark, staring into the void with an unsettling emptiness. His voice, once clear and confident, had been reduced to a mere whisper, as if the act of speaking required a Herculean effort he could barely muster. Alex's fragmented sentences painted a chilling picture of the threshold, a term that sent shivers down their spines. He described it as a liminal space, a borderland that teetered on the edge of our known reality and something far more ancient and unknowable. This threshold, according to Alex, was not merely a concept, but a tangible rift the experiment had recklessly torn open. Through his broken speech, they glimpsed the terrifying reality that the Institute's machinations were not confined to the realm of psychological study but ventured into domains that humanity was never meant to explore. The revelation of the Institute's final goal struck them with a profound sense of dread. It was now clear that the experiment was a cover for a much more sinister ambition, to bridge our reality with the abyss. This objective, pursued with a zeal that bordered on fanaticism, was unconcerned with the ethical ramifications or the potential cost in human lives. The abyss, as Alex alluded to, was not a metaphorical darkness but an actuality, an unfathomable expanse teeming with entities and energies that defied understanding. This understanding came with a heavy burden. The participants realized that their roles in the experiment were not those of mere observers or subjects, but pawns in a cosmic gambit, a dangerous dance on the precipice of an existential void. The Institute's true intentions were now laid bare, revealing a hubristic attempt to manipulate the very fabric of reality itself. This ambition, unchecked and unbridled, threatened not only their lives but the very essence of their being, risking untold consequences in its quest to merge our world with realms beyond comprehension. As they absorbed the gravity of Alex's revelations, a chilling resolve settled over them. The knowledge of the threshold and the Institute's true intentions galvanized their will to escape, to break free from the clutches of this nightmarish experiment. They understood that the path ahead was fraught with danger, that the Institute and its guardians of the threshold would not relinquish their subjects easily. Yet, armed with the truth and a newfound determination, they prepared to confront the darkness, to navigate the twisted corridors of the Edgewater Institute in a desperate bid for freedom and to expose the horrors that lay beyond the threshold, regardless of the cost. In their final bid for escape, the group was pursued not by guards, but by the shadows themselves, sentient and malevolent. The Institute seemed alive, its walls pulsating with an unholy energy. Mara, through sheer will and a profound desire to expose the Institute's atrocities, led her dwindling group towards what they hoped was the way out. In the climax, as they neared the exit, the true guardian of the threshold emerged, a creature of unspeakable horror, its form constantly shifting, a maelstrom of every fear ever conceived. Mara, realizing the futility of physical confrontation, confronted it with the only weapon she had left, her mind. Drawing upon every ounce of her intellect and courage, she challenged the creature in a battle of wills, projecting her unyielding determination to survive and bear witness to the horrors within the Edgewater Institute. In a heart-wrenching and lugubrious twist of fate, the once hopeful escape of Mara and her companions took a dark turn, reshaping the narrative into a tale of sacrifice and loss. Mara, with a courage that seemed to transcend the mortal confines of fear, chose to confront the abyssal entity head-on, a decision that would forever alter the course of events. Her actions were not born of desperation, but of a deep-seated resolve to ensure the safety of her fellow participants, a testament to her unyielding spirit. As the monstrous guardian of the threshold loomed, a maelstrom of unspeakable horror and shifting forms, Mara stood her ground. Her determination was palpable, a beacon of defiance in the face of oblivion. The others, spurred by her bravery, seized the moment to flee, their steps hastened by the knowledge of the sacrifice being made on their behalf. Mara, meanwhile, engaged in a battle of wills against the entity, her intellect and resilience pitted against an ancient force of malice. The Institute, a silent witness to this final confrontation, began to collapse around them, its foundations shaken by the severing of the experiment's conduit. As the walls crumbled and reality itself seemed to warp, Mara's struggle reached its zenith. She fought not with physical weapons, but with the strength of her mind, attempting to shield her comrades as they made their escape into the uncertain safety of the world beyond. However, the entity was not to be underestimated. It enveloped Mara, consuming her essence in a way that was both literal and metaphysical. The very fabric of her being was unraveled, absorbed into the abyss from which the entity had sprung. This act of consummation was not just an end to her physical existence but a merger of her consciousness with the infinite darkness, her identity lost in a sea of otherworldly despair. The aftermath saw the survivors emerge into a world that seemed superficially unchanged, a stark contrast to the nightmare they had endured. Yet, they were irrevocably altered, scarred by the events within the Institute and haunted by the loss of Mara. Their escape was bittersweet, tinged with the guilt of leaving her behind and the somber knowledge of her fate. Mara had become a part of the entity, her sacrifice ensuring the safety of her companions but at a cost far greater than any had anticipated. They bore witness to the horrors that lay hidden from the world, carrying with them the heavy burden of their experiences and the memory of Mara's bravery. Her fate, a chilling reminder of the dangers of meddling with forces beyond human comprehension, left an indelible mark on their souls. Mara's legacy was a poignant mix of heroism and tragedy, a story of one who faced the abyss not with fear, but with an unbreakable will, ultimately consumed entirely by the darkness she sought to defy. Dare to venture into the unknown. Join us on a journey where shadows whisper and secrets lurk. Subscribe now and ring the bell to summon fresh mysteries directly to your screen every few days. Ignore this call, and be warned, an eternal curse awaits those who wander in the dark, unguided. Do you have the courage to face the unknown? Your adventure begins with a click. Welcome to the realm where every notification brings you closer to the abyss. Subscribe, if you dare.